Okay, so up to this point, we've brought investors through what I'd call Act 1 of your company's pitch deck. You've established the problem, introduced the solution, and introduced yourself as the company that's going to solve it. So next up, let's move into Act 2 of your story and start talking about your product. When it comes to showing off how your product works, a lot of founders have this instinct to get extremely granular and show every little detail, but believe it or not, we wouldn't actually advise doing that. In a perfect product slide, you'll be able to explain how your solution works in just a few sentences, and if you can, show it off in visual terms too, like we're seeing on this slide here. But this slide is just the first step. The real magic of your product is going to reveal itself on the next slide, the differentiator. The question to answer here is basically what makes your solution different or special? Do you have like a proprietary technology or a major partnership in place or a distribution channel? This is essentially the place to show off some of the quote unquote special sauce that you haven't been able to cover in the previous slides. Okay, so by now, if you're doing your job, you should have your investors pretty interested, or at very least, they're intrigued by your idea and the logic behind your business, etc. So this is the point where they're going to want to dig in hard on the specifics of the opportunity in front of them, which brings us to our next slide, the TAM. TAM stands for total addressable market, which is fancy lingo for a metric that can give you and your investors a sense of the size of the opportunity. In other words, TAM is the total demand for your product across all the customers that you could potentially have. There are some other metrics too, like SAM, or serviceable addressable market. This is the percentage of your TAM that you can reasonably expect to reach with stuff like marketing and sales. And then there's SOM, or the serviceable obtainable market, which is the portion of your SAM that you're able to capture right now with the resources you have today. The reason why this slide's so important is because investors basically want to know that your market is big and there's plenty of room for you to enter that market and acquire customers. They're also going to want to know, like, okay, we know the size of the market today, right? But how much is that market going to be able to grow in the future? So next up, you'll go deeper into the market for your product by outlining the competition. And in our experience, we hear a lot of founders say stuff like, there is no competition. And if that's the case, great. But just so you know, having competition in a pitch deck isn't a bad thing. Really, what you want to show in this slide is that you understand there are other companies out there who have seen similar signals that you have and want to be part of this space too. But more importantly, this is the moment to really hammer one super important thing. What is your competitive differentiator? In other words, you want to list a few key attributes that you have that other competitors don't. Maybe it really is a totally new approach or product that others can't match, or maybe it's just that you and your co-founders are uniquely qualified to tackle this problem in a way that the competition isn't. Sometimes companies use a matrix style chart here that represents different sectors of the market, all the relevant players, and why your company stands alone. But whatever you put on this slide, just make sure that you're answering the question, why should me, the investor, why should I believe that you're going to beat everyone that you're competing with? Which brings us to the revenue model. Basically, what investors are going to want to know in this slide is a few kind of logistical things. Who are your customers? How much do you charge them? How do you charge them? Do you have a different price for different tiers of service? And as with every slide, you don't want to really overcomplicate things here, but you do want to include every relevant detail, like actual pricing charts or information on subscriptions or contracts. Okay, so you made it through Act 2, and by this point, the investors should have a good understanding of what your product is, how it's differentiated in the market, and perhaps most importantly, how you make money. In Part 3, you're going to bring all of it home by doing the most important thing, asking for actual money. You ready? Hit the button down below, and let's finish our pitch.